The evening sun cast long shadows over the bustling streets of Cleveland, Ohio. The city's heartbeat echoed in the steady rhythm of honking horns, hurried footsteps, and the occasional laugh from passers-by. On the corner of Broad Street and 17th Avenue, a man named Leonard sat slumped against the wall of a convenience store. His layered, worn-out clothes barely shielded him from the biting cold. Beside him, a cardboard sign read, "Anything helps." God bless. Leonard was 42 years old and had been living on the streets for nearly a year. A series of tragic events, a factory shutdown, his declining health, and an eviction had stripped him of everything. Each day, he gambled with hope, knowing most people avoided his gaze. That day, however, something extraordinary was about to happen. As Leonard adjusted his beanie, his weary eyes scanned the rushing crowd. Shoes, high heels, sneakers, polished loafers whizzed past, indifferent to his plight. Then something unusual caught his attention. A pair of perfectly shined leather shoes stopped a few feet from him. They were undeniably expensive and paired with a tailored coat that screamed wealth. Leonard's curiosity piqued as he looked up to see none other than Donald Trump standing before him, casually scrolling on his phone. The former president's unmistakable golden hair shimmered in the fading sunlight. Trump's presence turned heads immediately. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and phones discreetly emerged to capture the moment. Leonard, unsure of what to do, decided to take a leap of faith. "Excuse me, Mr. Trump," he called out, his voice raspy from the cold. "Could you spare $3? I just need enough for a hot coffee and maybe a bagel." Trump paused mid-scroll and looked down at Leonard. The noise of the bustling city seemed to fade as the two locked eyes. Trump's expression was unreadable, his gaze sharp and thoughtful. He tucked his phone into his pocket and stepped closer. $3? Trump repeated, his voice calm but commanding. Why 3? The question caught Leonard off guard. Most people either ignored him or threw a few coins without a word. Leonard hesitated, then said, "Well, a coffee costs about $2 and the bagel." "Well, that's $1. He forced a weak smile. "I just need a little warmth. It's been a long day." Trump nodded slowly, crouching down to meet Leonard at eye level. The move startled Leonard. No one had ever done that before. Around them, the crowd grew larger. People whispered, some openly recording the unusual sight of the billionaire-turned-ex-president kneeling beside a homeless man. Trump seemed unfazed by the attention. "What's your name?" Trump asked, his tone unexpectedly gentle. "Leonard," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Trump extended a gloved hand. "Leonard, I'm Donald Trump." "Nice to meet you." Leonard shook his hand, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Trump." Trump studied him for a moment. "Leonard, you've been out here for a while, haven't you?" Leonard nodded. "Almost a year now. Lost my job when the plant shut down. Then my health went bad. Couldn't keep up with rent." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "It's been downhill ever since." Trump listened intently, his gaze unwavering. Then his expression softened slightly. "You sound like a man who's been through the ringer, but there's something about you. Tell me, have you always lived here?" Leonard shook his head. "No, sir. Born in Michigan. Moved here after I got out of the military." Trump tilted his head. "You're a veteran." "Yes, sir. U.S. Army," Leonard replied, a touch of pride creeping into his voice. "Served 2 tours overseas. When I got back, things were fine for a while. Got a job at the plant, even got married. But life doesn't always go how you plan." Trump's brow furrowed. "What happened?" Leonard exhaled deeply, his breath visible in the cold air. "After the plant shut down, I started taking odd jobs. Then my wife left. Said she couldn't deal with the instability. I don't blame her. By the time I got sick, I had no savings, no support. One thing led to another, and here I am." Trump remained silent for a moment, his eyes scanning Leonard's face. "You've fought for this country," he said finally, his voice carrying a mix of respect and sadness. "And now, here you are." "That's not right." Leonard shrugged. "It's just how things worked out. I've made mistakes too. But I'm sober now, trying to get back on my feet." Trump nodded. "Sober? 2 years," Leonard said, holding up 2 fingers. "That's one thing I won't go back to. I learned the hard way that you can't climb out of the gutter if you're still holding onto the bottle." Trump's expression shifted to one of admiration. "That's impressive. Not many people can say that. You've got more strength than you realize, Leonard." Leonard blinked, the unexpected praise catching him off guard. "Thank you, Mr. Trump." Trump reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. Leonard's pulse quickened. He had asked for $3, but Trump's movements suggested something different. When his hand emerged, he wasn't holding 3 crumpled bills. Instead, he held a crisp $100 note. "Here," Trump said, extending the bill toward Leonard. "This should cover more than coffee." Leonard stared at the money, stunned. His hands trembled as he reached out to take it. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why would you do this?" Trump shrugged lightly. "Because I can," he said simply. But as Leonard gripped the bill, Trump's expression turned serious. "Listen, Leonard. This isn't just about the money. I want you to promise me something." Leonard looked up, confused. "What's that?" "If I help you today, you've got to help yourself tomorrow." "Deal?" Leonard felt a lump rise in his throat. The words hit harder than he expected. For the first time, in what felt like forever, someone wasn't just handing him a lifeline. They were challenging him to climb out of the hole he'd fallen into. He nodded, his voice shaky. "Deal." Satisfied, Trump reached into another pocket and pulled out a business card. On the back, he scribbled an address. "Go here tomorrow morning," he instructed. "They'll help you out. Tell them Donald Trump sent you." Leonard stared at the card, then back at Trump. "Why are you doing this?" Trump's lips curved into a faint smile. "Because everyone has a story, Leonard. Yours just hasn't been told yet." With that, Trump stood and adjusted his coat. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as he turned to leave, but not before addressing the bystanders. "You all saw that," he said, his voice booming. "Now go out there and do something good too." The next morning, Leonard stood outside the address Trump had given him. It was a modest brick building with a sign that read, "Hope Outreach Resource Center." Clutching the card in his pocket, Leonard hesitated, unsure if this was real or a cruel joke. Gathering his courage, he stepped inside. The warmth of the building enveloped him immediately. A kind receptionist greeted him with a smile. "How can I help you today?" Leonard slid the card across the counter. "Donald Trump sent me," he said nervously. The receptionist's eyes lit up. "Ah, you must be Leonard. We've been expecting you." She stood and motioned for him to follow. "Come on, let's get you started." Over the next few hours, Leonard met with a caseworker who listened to his story without judgment. They arranged a temporary bed at the shelter, scheduled a doctor's appointment, and connected him with a job training program. It was overwhelming, but for the first time in years, Leonard felt like the pieces of his life were being put back together. Meanwhile, the video of Trump's interaction with Leonard had gone viral. Social media exploded with debates. Was this a publicity stunt or genuine compassion? Regardless of opinions, one thing was certain: Trump's act of kindness had sparked a movement. Donations poured into shelters across the country, and hashtags like Trump Kindness Challenge trended worldwide. Weeks passed, and Leonard's life began to change. He reconnected with his estranged brother, who had seen the viral video and reached out. "I didn't know things had gotten so bad," his brother admitted, tears in his eyes. "I'm here for you now." As Leonard rebuilt his life, he reflected on the moment that changed everything. Trump hadn't just given him money, he had given him hope, and a reason to believe in himself again. The ripple effects of that single act of kindness continued to grow, touching lives far beyond Cleveland. Thank you for watching this incredible story of transformation and compassion. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring content. Share this video to spread kindness and make a difference today.